the stream, that'd be awesome. And yeah, we'll jump straight into the first game pretty much now. So, hello everyone, this is Madals, and today I've got an awesome best of one game coming up. It is between two awesome players. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's coming down, and I'm just going to get straight in and introduce them in this PV team. Down in the bottom right position, spawning as the red Protoss player, it is none other than, I believe this is right, Tgsasuke. Is how I'm going to say it. I'm going to just call him Sasuke, because I think that's how you pronounce his name. I must admit, I looked at this replay and I was like, can I say that word? And maybe I can, and if I can, high five for me. Anyway, his opponent up in the top left is the blue Terran player. It is none other than Star Tails Bomber. And I am 99% sure this is actually Bomber. He's been putting out a lot of replays and things like that, and they're all really high quality. If it is a Smurf account, it's a damn good one, that much I'll say for sure. Now, Belshire is going to be the map. PVT, the matchup, what kind of things can we be expecting to see? Well, there's some good options actually open to Protoss early on. They can try and take a bit of a greedy expansion, they can try and burn a bit of pain. What I'm really interested though is what Bomber's gonna be doing, because whether he goes for say like the Reaper expand, which I actually really like against Protoss. I think it's incredibly solid. You can get in there, you can get some great scanning information down, you can harass probes, you force the Stalker out sooner, and it looks like Bomber actually agrees with me. He's chucking down that refinery. Notice the refinery came after the barracks, just a very simple thing, which means that once you sell the barracks up, then straight into the refinery, then once this barracks is finished, you do actually have just about enough gas in order to chuck down that Reaper straight away. So just a cool little thing, but only if you put the, obviously, 3 SCVs in there immediately, but of course Bomber will do that. Now, over on the other side of the map, we see that just the one gas is down at the moment for Sasuke. Not quite sure what he's got planned yet. It's hard to tell when there's only that single gateway down, because there's still so many options. If I saw 2 gas, for example, I could straight away go into saying, well, it's going to be most likely one base with a really tech-heavy focus. Maybe some Blink play, for example, maybe some DTs, early Stargate, and early Robo. All of those are options, but basically, Bomber is going to be able to scout out a lot, because this Reaper is going to have an easy time getting into this base. There's some cliff area here, some cliff area around the side as well that it can bounce up and down. It's also got a nice escape path out of the natural. That's probably the key area for Reapers on this map, and it definitely has a lot of really good options. So we'll basically keep an eye out to see what that's going to see. But just for the moment, just the one gas coming down from Sasuke. This could be for a Nexus, and I think it's going to be because the probe is getting pulled. We've got a nice little bit of banked up minerals here. Other options would be, say, like 2 additional gateways coming down and just trying to put on a bit of pressure early on. But all looking good at the moment. Notice the Zeller hasn't been started, so it should just be going straight up into a Stalker. The gas actually for Suzuki is just on its way. The second gas is on its way too, so probably just waiting for that 50 gas. It'll be interesting to see whether Warp Gate Tech or the Stalker gets started first. And we do now have, of course, the Mothership Core out on the field, so that does give you a little bit of protection against this Reaper. You can start pushing it back, and there goes the Mothership Core. The Stalker also getting started up, having seen this Reaper now. Back over a Bomber's base, we've got the command center being made on the low ground, as well as the reactor and a second barracks coming down. So very normal stuff coming out here from Bomber. Very plain standard normal sailing opening. I guess the only thing which is quite interesting is the fact that he went for the reactor nice and early. He could have potentially looked to get a tech lab a bit sooner, start upgrades, but no, he's just going to pump out a couple more Marines to play it on the safe side. He's seen that there is the Nexus down. That's probably the most important thing that really Bomber could have scouted at this point, is now this Nexus is down, Bomber can deduce, Bomber can deduce a couple of things. One, he's not going to have to deal with any early pressure. For this Nexus to be down here, there must have been shortcuts taken in terms of just how much production there's going to be. His next thing is to really work out, is my opponent teching, or are they going to be going for a gateway heavy force against me? Once he identifies that, he can really switch up his play. And as we know, because we've got the advantage of seeing everyone's vision, Sasuke is going for that robotics facility. So this is tech heavy. If we see a forge as well, which is very possible, it's quite common to go for this kind of 1 gate, 1 robo and a forge, get the upgrades. You're focusing on tech and upgrades really heavily, which means the standing army would be pretty low. And this is really interesting from Bomber, actually. Bomber is getting down concussive shell first. This is potentially going to be a little bit of a timing, and this could work really nicely against this early Nexus, especially since we do now see the Forge coming down there as well. And with that Forge coming down, that means that the standing army is going to be very limited, and Bomber going to try and exploit that. He's moving out. He does hold the Watchtower with the Reaper. That means there's no way for Tgsasuke to know that this push is coming, and without knowing the push is on its way, he's going to find it very hard to defend. Where is the Mothership Core? That is the big question. It's just chilling over here. Note that it does have enough energy for a Photon Overcharge. That will help. But in terms of the sheer units defending, there really isn't very much here at all. Also, the Immortal has been skipped in favor of some Observers. The Reaper coming up, and this is a smart move because the Mothership Core is getting pulled back. And has this been seen? I don't believe it has, but the Mothership Core is still coming down towards the Natural. Robotics Bay immediately getting started, as well as a couple of additional pylons. But Bomber now, he's just going to run straight up. The Photon Overcharge was triggered at the Natural. The force field is good. One Marauder getting caught up on the high ground, one Marine up there. Good force field. That really was powerful there for Tgsasuke, because without units coming up, this is now trapped small force of Marines, but more reinforcements are on their way through, just waiting for Photon Overcharge to basically stop being active, because moving into this would be very difficult. The Sentry could potentially get focused, but I think there's just too many Stalkers here now, and this has been a really nice shutdown by Tgsasuke, all because of that really good force field. If all of that army had made it up into the main base, it would have done a lot of damage. He wouldn't have been able to defend it with just the 2 Stalkers and the Sentry that were currently out. The other thing for Bomber as well is he didn't lose too much, and he also got valuable scouting information in seeing the Robotics Bay. But the problem is, while he may now know that Colossi are going to get started to be produced very soon, he doesn't yet have any medevacs on the field. The first 2 are only coming down, so he doesn't really want to start pumping out Vikings until he has to. So he's got a small little leeway, because with only 1, maybe 2 Colossi out, especially before Extended Thermal Lance is finished, there's not an urgency to the Vikings coming out. What there is an urgency for, though, is getting just a couple more units onto the field, because the Marauders will match the range of the Colossus, and you can start picking it down. We also see Bomber getting +1. Interestingly, we've got +1 armor on its way out here for Tgsasuke. Now, the reason I say that's interesting is because currently his composition is not particularly Zealot heavy. If it was a Zealot heavy composition, I completely agree with getting down that +1 armor, because suddenly the Zealots can tank up so much damage, specifically from Marines, which have a high DPS. But, oh, nice Observer placement. We'll be able to see these medevacs coming in, and yeah, straight away we've got some Stalkers here. This isn't going to be able to do too much. The medevac's actually taking quite a bit of fire. 1 is forced to retreat out, and that means at least some of these units are going to get vaporized. Bomber really coming up a bit of against a brick wall at the moment, and that really isn't what he wants to be doing. We've got the second Forge as well as the Twilight Counter coming down, so that means the 2-1 upgrades can get started immediately for Tgsasuke. Getting a nice little upgrade lead there, because of course Bomber doesn't have the luxury of being able to chrono boost, but he does have a 3rd CC on its way out. That means his economy is going to be looking good. He's still just pumping a couple more barracks. Overall in resources lost, Bomber's losing about, well, nearly exactly 3 times, actually exactly 3 times more resources than that of his opponent, which isn't great, because if we look at the incomes, Bomber does have a bit more mineral income a minute, but that's just due to mules. Really, I'd say Tgsasuke hasn't lost a single worker. Definitely going to be sitting in quite a comfortable spot. With Blink coming down too, he's going to be able to really try and blink under those Vikings once they start hitting the field. Of course, the first 2 are out, ready to start dealing with the Colossi. But, well, with good Blinkstalker control, just kind of 4-6 Vikings may not be enough. And that's going to be very, very awkward for Bomber, who's kind of just sitting around with these drops, trying to keep an eye out to see whether the 3rd is attempting to get taken. He should know that he's slightly behind, and I say slightly behind purely just because the resources lost. That's the only thing. The fact that he's lost a couple of these units isn't going to be like the biggest thing in the world. He's just got to kind of sit back and make sure that he gets some good tech out. Nothing too crazy is going to be happening. But, oh, 3rd does try to come down. Doesn't get cancelled. Nice little snipe there for Bomber, and I'd say that in one move did really level things out. We can see he's only about 200 resources behind now, so that small snipe and just that loss of minerals really did level the playing field quite heavily. Of course, Bomber now is also there, sitting with a +1 armor. Things looking really quite nice for him. Gonna just fall a bit behind in terms of upgrades though, because of course the 1-2 upgrades are getting chrono boosted out at the moment for Tgsasuke. He's getting a nice force up, but we're getting around that point now where Tgsasuke does need to start thinking about adding on the Templar archives. He needs to think about the tech switch in towards those High Templar, and the reason for that is because the Viking count is getting pretty nice, and as a result Bomber will be able to deal with Colossi fairly well. Forcing another cancel on that 3rd is really good, by the way, but yeah, if you don't tech switch up, fairly soon, especially after you went for a very early robotics play. You rushed the Colossi as Protoss. You've got to make sure that you try your utmost to get out, say, a couple of High Templars sooner, just to threaten the Storm, because otherwise these Vikings can just keep getting made. There's no need for a Terran player to really worry about their composition. As we see now, actually, we've even got the Ghost Academy coming out before the the Templar Archives have even got started. It's just a very upgrade-heavy play for the time being out of Sasuke, which is probably going to be okay, but it all comes down to this Viking positioning. Like, for example, say the Vikings over here as the engagement comes in, they can come in from the side and pick off those Colossi very easily, and that could very well be what Bomber wants to do. He's also got a nice position over here. Basically, you're looking to position the Vikings anywhere that you can, that you're not going to be able to allow Blink Stalkers to basically blink underneath them and pick them off. If you avoid that, you're going to be in a very good spot, especially dealing against only the Colossus. Plus, remember, these rocks were taken out very early by Bomber. That means this area is a lot wider, and he then has the option to move in and doesn't have to risk the force. With the Vikings now coming in, the Stalkers will get a blink just up to the side, but the Vikings now will be able to micro back. One of the Colossus already falls. The next one, getting very low, will now get taken out. Bomber started stepping back with all of his infantry, just trying to keep it alive for as long as possible. 2 Colossus are down, but now more reinforcements come in for Bomber, and this is where he suddenly gets a very sizable force. He moves in, he's crushing the Zealots at the front. Only a single Colossus remains, and that really won't have enough DPS, especially with these Vikings still working that down. And once the Colossus falls, well, suddenly the infantry is going to be incredibly strong with that medevac support. Even the Vikings landing, and Tgsasuke maybe is in a tough spot now. There is a big wave of Warpins. Pretty confident Tgsasuke should be able to hold this force off, but look at this, reinforcements making the way across here for Bomber. Note that he switched straight back to medevac production after that. Once he knew that the Colossus count was down, he didn't need any more, so he was getting the medevacs just to increase the effectiveness of that, well, bio army, so he can really engage the gateway force. But this is a tough spot, and I love the fact that Bomber's segregating between the 3rd and the natural, because all the units are down in the 3rd. That next wave warping came in the 3rd. The natural Nexus could take a bit of a problem with so many medevacs here as well. We do see the Templar Archives could get focused too. The Nexus is being left with a tiny bit of health, so it can be picked up at the last minute. But when the Templar Archives down before any High Templar come out, really Bomber is now in an amazing spot, because he doesn't have to worry about a tech switch. He can pick up and boost out of there with the 3rd base up, with the much better economy, and with his opponent's natural destroyed. Bomber's economy booming. He's 1,000 minerals a minute above that of his opponent, and he may even go and doom drop into the main. We do have a cannon here, and clearly Tgsasuke thinking the same thing after seeing that move out. He's got some Stalkers warping in, but there's just so many medevacs. A quick boost, a quick unload, and the Marauders can make sure work off them. The upgrade advantage is there for Tgsasuke still. He's at the 2-3 upgrades compared to Bomber's 1-1 for the time being, but +2 infantry weapons is about to kick in. The main is getting annihilated, and now we see Tgsasuke down to just the single Nexus, and most of Bomber's army will be able to escape unscathed. That is the big thing. Bomber's conserved his units, basically destroyed all of his opponent's economy, bar this 3rd Nexus, and he's just now in an amazingly good spot. Gets a little scan off just to pick up that observer to keep an eye out on what's going on. There's a Colossus very far forward, and Bomber, he's actually going to go back into the main base, because look at how far out of position this army is. This is going to be very threatening. A bit more production could get taken out. There's a lone Colossus here as well, backing itself into a corner where it cannot run away. If it gets taken down, of course, that's going to be very problematic. It does go down. There's still a single Colossus remaining, but Probes long distance mining here. But while Bomber is forced to retreat for the time being, all of his army pretty much taken out there. His economy is just ridiculously good at the moment. Look at that difference. I'm just actually going to bring up the bar chart of this. Like, look at that. That is the income of Bomber compared to Tgsasuke at the moment. It's hugely in Bomber's favor. He can take those cost-ineffective trades in exchange for a single lone Colossus, because, frankly, Tgsasuke does not have the money to make more Colossi, whereas Bomber can make infantry pretty much all day. 2 bunkers here are empty, unfortunately, so will get taken down fairly fast. Bomber may have to sacrifice his base, but all he's got to do is destroy this army, and if he does, well, guess what? He's pretty much then got nothing standing in his way for the win, because this army is really all that stands. And if we take a look, Bomber's already ahead 127 to 70 army supply, and he's at nearly double his opponent's overall supply. That just means things are looking very good for Bomber at the moment. There's no other way around that. He's also starting to level out the upgrades. It's 3-3 now, though, for Tgsasuke, which means that he does have an upgrade lead for the time being. 3-3 up against Q1, obviously quite substantial. But Bomber, he's already got 3-2 on its way, and once that kicks in, that upgrade lead suddenly starts disappearing and becoming very insignificant. Like the fact that Tgsasuke is doing his utmost to get everywhere and anywhere that he can, just trying to find a nice position. But yeah, there's the GG. He saw some of the army coming around the side, and there's just too much there. So congratulations to Bomber. Played that really nicely after a bit of a rough start. And yeah, all looking pretty damn good.